Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Industry Insight podcast. I'm your host, Bobby. Today, we welcome casting directors Brett Greenstein, C.S.A., and Collin Daniel, C.S.A., who join us to talk about their work on Nobody Wants This. Brett and Collin will talk us through what the casting process is for a comedy/drama TV show. Please be warned there are heavy spoilers in this episode. Now let's jump into the conversation with Brett and Collin. Hi Brett, hi Collin. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, thanks for having
Hi,
us.
Rob. Yeah, thank you for having us. It's great to meet you.
It's great to meet you guys as well, and I'm excited to sit down and talk about Nobody Wants This, which aired last year on Netflix. But we're talking about this to the run-up for um, the Emmys and nominations. Yeah, I've got to say the series is great, and
Ah,
I'm really excited to talk about the casting side of it. As I mentioned off screen, you guys are my first casting directors on this, so it's like. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to sort of delve into that world and find out more about it.
Yes, let's do it.
Um,
yes.
Before we sort of jump in, how have you found reaction to the project? Because I've seen a lot of talk online. People are enjoying it. My wife really enjoyed it, and she kind of checks out shows after like 10 minutes, so she's kind of watched the whole thing. So, yeah, how have you guys found the reaction to it all?
It's been completely overwhelming. We've never worked on a project that's had this kind of reaction in our 20 years of casting. I mean, people from all walks of life seem to be watching it, which is really exciting. And, you'll hear from, my dentist loves it. And just the most random things when you say, oh, I work on this show, nobody wants this. Everybody seems to know it, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. It's really cool that it seems to have like transcended demographics. Like, my parents' friends love it. My sister's friends love it. Our we have professional friends who like agents and managers who have been reaching out to us to tell us like they just love this show and just love the casting. And so we just have been it's just been so nice to get the accolades and the fact that people just love it. We're thrilled with the reception. And it's so crazy. Like it just kind of hit the zeitgeist like immediately after release. It just kind of was unleashed to the world, and all of a sudden, like it just word of mouth spread so fast, and it was so cool to see like so many people watch it in such a short amount of time. And it was, I think, wasn't it number one on Netflix for a good few weeks? So,
Oh,
which was thrilling.
It's amazing how, with Netflix as well, because the way that they operate, it's very different to sort of like a standard TV model. So when it does something does hit, the amount of people that'll talk about it, and then the amount of, like how long you'll see it as number one and it'll pop up on your feed. But I think the real big thing is, and this is, I think you both will agree, is that you've made it as well, when like your parents or your parents' friends are messaging you about it, and you're like, that's actually meant something rather than like, so this is what they do. Oh, okay, now I understand. It's actually a real
Exactly.
job.
it's a show,
Exactly.
a
They get
show
it.
that it's a show that my dad in Ohio even knows about.
Yeah. And I bet you that's probably the first time he's been like, yeah, like,
I've been doing this a long time,
yeah.
and it's his favorite show. So it really does, like Brett said, it transcends like all demographics.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of funny. It just it I don't know what it is about this formula and about these stars, about these actors and the cast, but it just for some reason it just really struck a chord and I think people found it very relatable and funny and heartwarming, and so it was just so cool to see like so many different people respond to it in the way that they did.
and I guess as well, like kind of relevant to like what people go through every day. I don't know about you guys, but I listen to podcasts. You kind of get into that habit of like, how do you find a good relationship? And then you just have like the supporting cast as well around that sort of make the show as well. But when it comes to the casting process, because I think as audience members, we don't necessarily think about the casting process that much because we always get to see the final show, film, theatre production, or whatever. But where do you begin when it comes to a comedy show and something like this? Do producers have people in mind already, or do you reach out to people to get them to audition or offer them the part?
This one was a little different. Kristen Bell was already attached to the project when we came on. So we knew we had Joanne in place, which was a big piece of the puzzle. And then, of course, it was, the role of the hot rabbi, which we knew we had to tackle. And Kristen said from day one, God bless her, this is Adam Brody, I'm telling you guys. And the producers wanted to audition people. So we read every hot Jewish guy that there is out there. I mean, guys, very recognizable names that read for the show. And we kind of went through our normal casting process for a couple months, just looking for the Noah character. And then at the end, everybody kind of agreed collectively, like, we should go to Adam Brody. And luckily, he said yes. And he and Kristen had a previous relationship. So we were able to get him on board. And the chemistry between them, I think, speaks for itself. So, which is a huge part, I think, of the success of the show. So we were very lucky that two actors who didn't read together ever, the chemistry is there and really works.
Yeah. It's really it's lightning in a bottle when you capture it like that because you just don't know what you're going to get. But the two of them just have such electric chemistry and they look great together. They bounce off of each other well comedically. They're both just big honking TV stars, and it's just those worlds collide, and it was magic. So we were just thrilled that they work as well together as they do.
So it's crazy to hear about them not actually reading together because I could potentially imagine maybe the first day of rehearsals or even the first day on set stepping on
Yeah,
and being like, I hope this works.
exactly. Well, you just have to take a gamble sometimes because there's actors that are at a certain point in their career where they don't have to audition anymore, and that's certainly Adam and Kristen, and you just have to trust that yeah, this makes sense, and obviously because they had a friendship already behind the scenes and they have actually acted together before, it was just you just kind of trust that it's going to work, and it worked like tenfold. So
And there were
um,
some clips of them acting together. So the producers were able to see something rather than, there were some clips from some previous work they'd done together that they were able to watch. But after auditioning so many people for the part, it was just really clear that, yes, this is Adam Brody. It's exactly what we need.
Yeah, and I can imagine as well, like because you see so many people and you're going to audition so many people. I can imagine that sometimes if there's a case of like this person could work, but we're not 100% sure, would rather go with our first choice. How do you sort of, in the audition process, work around certain actors and how and play to their strengths and their weaknesses?
like for instance, when we were casting the brother and the sister, Adam's brother and Kristen's character's sister, there was a lot of Adam and Kristen made themselves available to come in and read people, so we were able to gauge chemistry, able to see physically if they make sense together. Do you believe that they're brother and sister? Do you believe, I mean, brother and brother and sister? So luckily in that way we were able to kind of go through a typical casting process for the supporting cast and have them in a room with our stars and just see how it all goes, and you probably do a few rounds of that and you tape it and you share it with the studio, you share it with Netflix, and then you hopefully everybody sees what we see in the room. But that's just part of the process is just getting in there and just trying it. And we tried a lot of actors for those roles. So it's a process and it's a search for sure.
You mentioned something as well, putting auditions in front of Netflix producers. Maybe there might be someone else involved as well. What happens when you see something, but they don't see something? How do you sort of navigate that minefield? Because you kind of have to sell someone, they're unsure because they might not be the right person, but you know they could be right for the role.
Mhm.
How do you go about convincing them, or is it a case of getting more than one audition, doing callbacks to sort of basically prove their decision wrong?
I think it's a mixture of things. I mean, like for Justine Loop's character Morgan, we had her on our list from day one. we'd done a comedy pilot with her and knew how funny she could be. And we're like, she's perfect for Kristen's sister. And she was just coming off of Succession. So I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, it's more dramatic. Is this the comic vibe we need? And it was so clear once we got her into audition. We're like, see, we told you. Here it is right there. The proof's right there. And she and Kristen were fantastic together. And it's a perfect example of, actors who are willing to read and go through the process end up with a great role. And, a lot of people were, a lot of actors say they're offer only and won't audition. So it's a real gamble. And we were lucky with Justine and with Tim Simons, who were both completely game to audition. They came in as many times as we needed. So everybody was on the same page and exactly sure that's our Morgan and our Sasha.
And sometimes it is a discussion with the studio. Like, for instance, Netflix is produced by 20th Television and for Netflix. And you have to bring everything to 20th first, your choices, and get them approved by all those executives. And sometimes it's a discussion. Sometimes they want to hear from the producers, they want to hear their vision, they want to know why is it this person over this person. Sometimes they need to look at their body of work, like a demo reel of past work. It wasn't specifically the case on the show, but sometimes there is a little bit of selling that you have to do. And that usually comes from producers to the studio or network executives to kind of just, tell them their vision, explain why you're passionate about this actor, and then you just hope that they see what you guys see. So, but luckily on this show, it was pretty obvious who the choices were, and luckily everybody, saw what we saw, which was very exciting.
I can imagine that there's probably a number of stories where people have can't hasn't seen something with an actor, then all of a sudden they sort of blow up or something else happens and they're kind of like, oh, we've missed the boat on that. But I guess that's also just part and parcel of the job that you have to take risks or or maybe not take risks and play it safe. Just because at the end of the day, even though they're creating art, there's also they'll think about it more of an investment rather than art, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm curious to know about as well, I think you touched upon it as with it about the supporting cast and how some of them have come about. With the supporting cast, and because there is that religious aspect to the show, how important was it to find actors of who have a Jewish faith or have some sort of Judaism background? And how do you go about kind of, I can imagine it being slightly sensitive as well. How do you go about sort of accommodating that factor in the casting?
I will leave this question to Mr. Brett Greenstein.
The Jewish guy on the team. Listen, we're very sensitive to it. These parts are, we'd like to cast authentically. Everybody was hoping to do that and that was sort of our marching orders going forward. That said, you want the best person for the roles and you want somebody who makes sense. You want somebody who brings that character to life. Certainly, we tried to be as authentic as we can in the casting
It was always
and
very important to everybody at the studio and at Netflix also to really try to find Jewish actors that are authentically Jewish. And I think we did a really good job in season one. Almost every part that was Jewish, written as a Jewish character, is played by a Jewish actor. So we really, really did go above and beyond to try to find authentically Jewish actors.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you don't know. You just like I can tell sometimes when someone's Jewish just based on their last name, or if I know them personally, or I know their body of work. But sometimes you just don't know, and you just have to go for the best actor for the job. But luckily, on this show, we were able to cast mostly authentically, which we're very proud of.
I can imagine it being a big challenge, and because there is, there's quite sensitive if you think about it in terms of
Yeah.
the sort of nature of like talking about religion and having it set in a synagogue and having someone who's a
Mhm.
rabbi, because it's like imagine doing that with a priest, which they've kind of done with something like Fleabag, but
Yeah.
not
Right.
not necessarily as far because there's rabbis and priests live by a certain different rules and code, shall we
Yeah.
say. But then also with the supporting cast as well. Because I'm not sure about you guys, because I've got an Eastern European heritage. When you see those supporting cast, it feels exactly like how people are in my
Hmm.
sort of community. The sort
Yeah.
of people sort of just everybody's in everybody's business, and it's again the moments where you just I can't stop laughing. And it's
It's
just
very relatable. It's very relatable. And it's also, I think, could be it's almost cross-cultural in a way because this could have been a Chinese family. This could have been a Mexican family. This could have been an Italian family. So I think I don't even know if it's really, yes, it's specific to a Jewish experience here, but I think it could have been so many different kinds of families and different kinds of romances from a different cultural background and still be relatable and still be something that we could see ourselves in, even if we are not that culture or religion that's portrayed on screen. So I think that was the beauty of the writing is that it was just so relatable in such broad terms for everybody, and it wasn't specifically just a Jewish story. It's a human story.
yes, 100%. And it does, I guess that's why everybody's sort of cotton onto it because they can. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody has a story like that of just how people try to get too overly involved in their business.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that's the beauty of a show and the beauty about human stories and why they're so important in our everyday lives to
Mhm.
have on like shows or films or plays. But yeah, anyway, back to the show, sorry. When you do have, when you, sorry, just want to go back to the sporting cast because I can, whilst you have Adam and Kristen in it as your sort of the predominantly, should we say, air quotes, biggest stars, when it comes to the supporting cast as well, because there are certain actors that are very well known, so that you would have seen in other shows or films, and then there's some for me that I wouldn't have noticed before. How do you go about getting the right balance between getting people who are well known and then also going for people who are very talented but might not be as well known?
I mean, I think we were fortunate on this show that there wasn't a mandate to get stars. I mean, you have two TV stars in Kristen and Adam, and the show really is based on them and their relationship. So I think the star quality we got from our leads, and really the mandate was just to surround them with relatable, very funny, very we want to make sure that they are believable as relatives, as a mother, as a dad, as a brother and a sister. And we also wanted to, I think the writers did a really good job of capturing Los Angeles and the diversity of the city. And we wanted their experience on the show to reflect the world in which they live in. So it's not, they weren't surrounded by just Jewish people. It was all sorts of walks of life on the show. So, but I think the main thing was we weren't required to get stars in those supporting roles, which is great because then we can concentrate on just the best actor for the role, who is going to be the funniest, who is going to support our leads in a great way. And yeah, so we were fortunate in that way because we've been on shows before where they just, we need stars here, we need stars here, we need stars there, and this wasn't really the case.
We had the stars, which is just a big piece of the puzzle in casting in general. Usually,
Yeah.
the networks or studios are going to want some sort of name in one or two of the roles. And once we had Kristen and Adam, the pressure was kind of off in a way to just cast the best actors, which is for us really refreshing because then we don't have to worry about playing the name game per se.
So you do have to sort of play the name game, and does that add more pressure to how you go about casting and doing your work because you need to get somebody who's of of note rather than somebody who should be there on merit, for example?
I think there's a little bit of both in that. I think that when you have to cast a name, a lot of times they're offer only, so they're actors that are not going to read. So you're really taking a gamble from the get-go of who this is, and generally the network is going to have a big opinion about who moves the needle, about which is the kind of name they want for a
Mhm.
certain project. Is that going to, get enough eyeballs on the project that this name works? So I don't know. It usually comes more from a network point of view, the name game per se. I don't know if I answered that correctly, but
And it's also a budget thing too. Like if that network is willing to spend a little bit more money to get somebody of note, then great. Let's try it. Let's make some offers. Let's take some meetings with some names and just see if they want to play ball. But especially in today's television landscape, there isn't a lot of money. And when you you know you and when you're fortunate enough to get two TV stars, chances are there's probably not going to be enough in the pot for the rest of it. So, so that's when luckily we, get to just cast the best actor for the role. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes that is a need and something that the network would like. It just depends on the show. And yeah, again, for marketing and for all those things, what moves the needle. But it's really a network call. Rarely does it come from us or from our producers. It's really just, I think sometimes it's just a network thing. See, how can we make this a little bigger?
Interesting. I think again, there's so much that goes into it as well, and I think as well with what you guys do as casting directors is it's fascinating because it's just
Yeah,
you, as you said, if you even though you have those two big stars on the forefront, it's then you kind of I bet you probably have a lot more fun than being casting people who don't need to don't need to go for air quotes the star name, and how
yeah,
much more fun you could probably have in those readings,
yeah.
the readings, sorry.
Well, and also the beauty of television is we make TV stars. You're discovering new people all the time, and you're watching them. Maybe if they get hit on a show, that's huge, and then they become a name. So, but we've cast so many people over the years who really didn't have big credits under their belts yet, or any kind of name value, and they happen to be on a hit, and all of a sudden, like, oh, they kind of mean something now. And so that's just the great thing about television is that you make television stars. And so a lot of the times you don't really need names because the audiences don't really require it. But it's obviously nice to have sometimes, especially for the lead role. But in terms of supporting casts, it's that's the beauty of casting, and that we get to really just cast the right actor for the part. And if they break through and sort of became a name, that's just an exciting bonus.
I was going to say, like the character of Esther, who Jackie Tone plays, she wasn't a series regular in season one, and now, the show was a success and everybody loved her so much, they made her a series regular for season two. So it's always nice to see that kind of process happen where an actor who just, starts out as, maybe a couple episodes, we didn't know how much we were going to see the character. Then the character kind of clicks and just works within the
Yeah.
ensemble. And now
Mhm.
she's a part of the main cast.
Yeah, and she ended up being in 9 out of the 10 episodes, I think, in season one, which wasn't really the plan. And she because she hit and really she was just so great. The studio network decided to make her a series regular in season two, and she's awesome. And we love her. She's so good in this part.
Again, we as audience members, we don't see that sort of part of it, and I do like the answer of like you guys. It feels like if you talk to like Quincy Jones, being like, yeah, I make hits with all these people, and that's what it kind of sounds like with you guys when it comes with actors and how they sort of come at the forefront. But then also with TV, sometimes actors can really like stretch their chops with what they're doing
Yeah.
compared to maybe a film because film you might be slightly constructed with, I don't know, 2 hours, 90 minutes, whilst with a TV show, you can have how many episodes to really show your talent.
Yeah, and for many, many years. It could go on for, 10 seasons. So you just never know. And it's exciting to get a character that you can grow with and kind of shape and make your own. And then when it clicks with an audience, it's just that's it's a bonus.
Yeah, look at something like what you guys did on Superstore, for example,
Yeah.
and just how that ran for what over 100 episodes. So
Yeah.
everybody sort of grew to love the characters, and you could kind of see each character have their own arc, or even grow into the role, and people just become fan favorites.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
a lot of the supporting characters on that show started out with just, one and two line and ended up doing, 67 episodes. So you just never know when a character really clicks and the writers respond to the character and the audience does, it can really change an actor's life.
Yeah, which is like crazy to think that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Just you just need that one little sprinkle of magic.
exactly.
Just to hit with my final question, because I know we're
Yeah.
slightly pressed for time. When you have a show like this where there is a mix between sort of like drama and comedy, and how do you get the actors to audition for the parts? Do you sort of go for someone who might have a more comedic element and then see if they could try it with drama, or do you go someone who's a little bit more dramatic and then let them try comedy because there is slight similarities with them in terms of like thinking about the timing side, but then it's also a lot for an actor. Not every actor could potentially do both.
I think on this one, we kind of went into it thinking comedy, just in terms of a starting place. We're looking for comedic actors. And then I think through the audition process, you try to find, one comedic scene and then a scene that leans a little more into the drama side of the show. So you can kind of see those two different variations of what they can do. And I think that goes, it's a testament to our writers, Aaron Foster and the rest of the crew that, there are those emotional moments within the show. So we were able to pull those scenes to audition with, which was really helpful.
Again, it's like fascinating to find out because getting the right balance could possibly be difficult, but then also putting the right names forward with it and sort of working with actors' strengths and maybe playing with their weaknesses a little bit as well, because then maybe you could push them into what they can do and what they can't do or what they can improve on as
Yeah.
well without them
Right.
actually realizing.
I
Right.
think it, and I also think it's easier to, for a, I think it's harder to be funny if you're not funny. So I think it's easier to start with comedy and then push them towards a dramatic scene. I think it's easier for an actor who's just inherently funny. I think you either kind of have that gene or you maybe don't have it as much. So it's a balance of the two, but it's I think harder to go from drama to comedy, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And also with a pilot episode, when you're making the first episode of a show, you generally have more time. So there's more room to explore actors who you wouldn't necessarily think of because based on the resume, they might not be, very comedy leaning. But we usually have like 10 weeks to cast like that first episode of a show. So it gives us more opportunity to try more actors and just kind of give people shots, people who maybe initially wouldn't come to our minds. But because the beauty of time and because you want to get it right and you want to just try as many people as you can, we'll try people who may only have a little bit of comedy under their belt and just kind of see how it goes. And we'd love to be pleasantly surprised when we find somebody who can do both.
I bet you as well, like when you're there in the moment and watching the auditions and when you see someone who can do both or you can see what certain people can do, I bet you that light bulb moment is so satisfying.
Oh my God, there's no better feeling when you're like been searching for this one character for weeks and weeks and weeks, and nobody seems to be nailing it or getting it. It's just not clicking. And then that person comes in like on week 8 of the process and just like nails it and brings something new that we never saw before and just makes it pop. It's like, and we're all collectively in the room and we all kind of look at each other like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And it's the best feeling because we've, just knowing that you finally found that, diamond in the rough or that needle in a haystack kind of thing. So it's thrilling.
Yes, and I bet you those are the days when you get home and you just think, damn, that was a really good day. That was really
Yeah,
good, and we've managed it and we've nailed it.
We did
exactly.
it. Yes.
Because you think, oh God, we're never going to find this person. It's impossible, and then it happens, and just it's
The
so
right
satisfying.
the right role for the right person at the right time.
Yeah,
I think just love it when the stars align and boom, they're
Yeah.
there.
exactly,
Um,
exactly it.
Brett and Colin, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
having
having us. It was so nice chatting
me.
with
I
you.
enjoyed it.
Thank you. That's very kind. Hopefully, I passed the audition. Nobody Wants This is streaming now on Netflix. Go out and watch Brett and Colin's casting magic on the show and keep an eye out for their work on season 2. Thank you both, Brett and Colin, again. You guys take care and bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.